No, but with your case, Newtown was different. That was something that just really shocked the core of the nation because it was so many young children. And people kept saying, now there will be a change in the gun laws. Now something will happen. Now Congress will act. And we sit here, 2012 to 2019, 7 years later, and nothing has happened. What do you think? How do you process that?
I offer a challenge. If I can get up every day and still deal with that, so can everybody else. And so can everyone else continue to work for change. I think it illustrated to the world that our Congress was willing to do nothing, and I think that should move you to action, not make you defeated, not make you helpless. You don't get the right to be helpless. If I have to get up and raise my son and face the world with a dead child, a 6-year-old in a bathroom in a first grade, then you have to get up too, and you have to join us, because tomorrow it could be your turn.
I don't think they believe that. I think our legislators and people that have the power to make changes, they're in their bubble and they refuse to think that they could be the next person because they're surrounded by whatever force they have. And even when the shooting happened in DC, and people really still believe that they are immune to this and it will not happen to me.
You think they really still believe that?
Yes.
We know we can't go to school, we can't go to movies, we can't go to yoga theaters, we can't go to concerts. How could people still believe it can't happen to you?
Las Vegas was the deadliest lone gunman shooting in the history of the United States. Parkland was the deadliest high school shooting in the history of the United States. Sutherland Springs was the deadliest house of worship shooting in the history of the United States, all within the past 2 years. All within the past 2 years. And yet, Congress and this president haven't done anything. After Isla Vista, where my son was killed, the California legislature, within 4 months, passed a red flag law that allows law enforcement or immediate family members to petition a court. New Zealand.
Yeah. They did it in 10 days.
They did it in 10 days.
They changed it in 10 days.
Congress can declare, in World War II, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. They declared war within 48 hours. Congress and the president have the ability to act in emergency situations. What more of an emergency situation can we envision for our country? I listened to a woman talking about her experience in Las Vegas, and it reminded me of basic training in the military. I'm a veteran, and they were training us to fight in Vietnam. And during that process, they try to recreate the battlefield experience with live fire, ammunition, explosions going on. And when this woman was talking to me about the experience of what it was like to be there at that concert in Las Vegas and how long it went on, it reminded me of that experience of simulated combat. That's in our country. Yeah. It's not a war. It's not supposed to be a war here. I mean, we should be able to count on our loved ones going to a theater, going to school, and return safely to us. And, we can do better than this.
So what do you think needs to happen? I almost worry that we become desensitized to it, that it just sounds like white noise. People feel very sympathetic for your loss and are very sorry, but nothing changes.
Sometimes there's a feeling of hopelessness or helplessness. People, the shootings in Gilroy,
the Garlic Festival in California, yes.
And then people, after that happens, they say, California has strong gun laws don't work. And that's just nonsense. Flying today is much safer than it was in the 50s and 60s, but airplanes still crash. When an airplane crashes today in this country, we don't say safety measures don't work, throw them all out. We figure out what happened in this particular crash, and then we do something to solve that problem. Yes, California has strong gun laws, and yes, they work. Do they work 100% of the time? No.
Well, the president seems to be backtracking on the call for universal. Yeah. He now says, guns don't pull the trigger. It's the people that pull the trigger. And you hear that and you think.
Well, that's why we want to have background checks on people. What we would like to see, I think all of us, is background checks on all gun sales in this country, whether it's on the internet or wherever. it just strikes me as ludicrous every time I hear the argument that more guns is the answer to gun violence.
Yes.
You know, every time we have these mass killings, then the NRA wants, I mean, I'm not talking
And
about
gun
the
sales go up, Richard?
Yeah.
But you're saying the irony of more guns would make this a better situation.
The basic argument that we hear after all of these things is that school shootings.
Yeah.
We need to arm ourselves.
Yeah.
More guns is the answer to gun violence. It's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous. What we know from looking at other countries, it's the more guns that gives us the disproportionate gun violence that we have in this country as compared with any other developed country in the world. It is the guns. It's ridiculous to suggest otherwise.
People keep not knowing and understanding that the power of the vote is what's going to help, because then if we can get people, our legislators, that have a heart, not just about getting money from the NRA, but having a heart, and that your constituents, this agenda is very important.
But you know, people say it's about Second Amendment rights, the right to bear arms.
Yeah.
I'd like to see some pro-life folks on our side.
Yeah.
Because I have a right to see my daughter enter 8th grade this fall, and I don't get to do that, just like you don't get college, and you don't get your dad, and you don't get your family.
My mom's 75th birthday is August the 30th.
You're saying I have a right to that too.
I have a right as a citizen of this country to a pursuit of liberty and life and happiness, which has been taken from me, and I am grossly, as a mental health professional, offended by the words of our president and members of Congress linking mental illness to mass shootings. We know that people who suffer from mental illness are more likely to be victims of violence and not perpetrators. And for us to add to the pain of survivors and gun violence with false information is reckless, is absolutely inappropriate.
You don't see it as a mental health issue, Melba?
I don't think it's responsible to say the problem isn't here, it's there. The mental health issue I see is that we don't have strong systems of care for people who suffer traumatic experiences or have mental illness. We need better in that. But this whole irresponsible conversation about saying it's not guns, it's this, no, it's everything. It is all of it.
All of that.
How do you move on after a loss like this? When we return, Gayle and our panel talk about the toll each new mass shooting takes on them and what they want the 2020 presidential candidates and every other American to do to prevent the next tragedy. You're watching CBSN.